ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Hilda Kragha, who's the CEO, the present CEO of Jobberman Nigeria. Madam, you're very welcome to today's event. And thanks for being patient with us. Even though we crashed into your time a little, please bear with us. Bear with us. Rather be a little bit of technicality at the beginning. I did tell the viewers that the present situation of the globe has made many of us now come to realize the utmost importance of technology. So whether we like it or not, we must get used to this present norm, using Zoom and other various mechanisms to network and get to share ideas. And that's why we're doing this today in commemoration of the World MSME Day. So once more, madam, we thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. Now, let me quickly do a quick bio readout for our next speaker before she takes on her session. Interestingly, guys, the bio I got on Madame, I love the beginning, and I'm going to stress that a bit. Nationality read Uganda, and I saw married to a Nigerian. I really love that part. That was really very beautiful when I saw it, the Niger wife caveat. So Mrs. Hilda Kragha is the present executive CEO of Jobberman Nigeria. Experience that spans from her time in McKinsey and Company to the time she spent with KPMG. She spent she has areas falling to EMEAs, and she has a wealth of experience that she's going to be bringing to us today from her various backgrounds and her present position as the CEO of Jobberman Nigeria, which of course is Jobberman Nigeria holds over 2 million job seekers and 60,000 employees, and it's a wonderful platform that many of us know. So it will be very interesting to hear her experience working with Jobberman and the insight she has to dole out for us today, similar to what our first speaker was finished talking about. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Madam Hilda Kragha as she takes the podium and gives us her delivery. And she will be talking on the subject matter. She'll be discussing on the subject matter, as I said earlier, getting the best resources for an organization. It's a very important ingredient to have if you must run a successful business. Without the right resources, your business is, heading on the wrong path. So we're going to hear from Madame how that's the kind of role that plays for any successful brand in today's world. Madam Hilda, you have our attention. Welcome once more.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I hope you can all hear me. In case I'm not clear, please let me know. Yeah, just to clarify, the reason I actually specify and put Niger wife in my bio is to raise awareness. Many Nigerians don't realize that when you marry a Nigerian man, you don't have a right to citizenship. You get a status called the Niger wife status. So I'm trying to spread the gospel so at one time we Niger wives can become citizens also. So if you know anybody out there who can help, please spread the word. That's the purpose of putting that in there. But I'm really excited to speak to you. I know the topic is supposed to be, how to get the best resources for your company, and probably thinking about Jobberman, you think I'll focus on human resources, but that's actually not true. What I want to do is just spend some time. I want to abbreviate, shorten my presentation because I want to help us catch up back on the time and leave time for questions. So let's just get into it. So I'd say, first of all, especially if you're at the beginning of setting up a business, or maybe you already have a business and you're just trying to figure out how to get to the next level, especially from a resource planning perspective, I would say that you need to take a systematic approach. A lot of the pitfalls people fall into and business owners fall into are from doing things haphazardly, right? You see a shortage somewhere, you try and fix it. You see a leak somewhere, try and fix it. You see a gap somewhere, try and fix it. But if you do that, you'll always be chasing an answer you don't know. So I'd say first thing is to be systematic about this. And how do you do it? Number one is do a baseline of what your organization looks like currently, end to end. And this, if it's a smaller business, it should not be so complicated. When you think about organizations, typically, it's essentially a group or a group of different departments working together to move the organization forward. There's so many interconnected pieces. Nothing is independent. And if one thing is not working, you will not achieve the results you want to achieve. So the first thing you need to do is, let me just check. Can you guys hear me? Just checking.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Please
Okay,
go ahead.
perfect. Okay, cool. So the first thing you want to do is just analyze all the different departments, all the different divisions in your firm, and figure out what is the current status, what are the gaps that we have, where are performance spikes, so where are our strengths, right? And have that for your organization. Do it across all the different dimensions. Once you do that, you realize that pretty much like resources fall into, I'd say maybe 4 broad buckets. There's something around finance, which is funding. So if your gap is a funding gap, that's one area. There's something else around human capital, so HR. So if your resources around if your challenges or your spikes or whatever around employees, another area of resources to think about. Then the third one would be physical resources. So it could be things like equipment, premises, physical things you need, and maybe there's a lack there. And the last one would be emotional resources. We typically forget this, but if you're an entrepreneur, if you're running a business, it's very, very tough. And you need to have a very strong support system that can help you problem solve, that can help you, that can provide mentorship, that can open doors from networking perspective. And that's kind of like all the other resources, if you think through it, are going to fall in one of those four categories broadly. So if you do a benchmark across those 4 categories, it enables you to understand where exactly your organization is today and where you need to beef up. So once you've done that bottom up, the next step for me would be to benchmark what you see in an organization against similar organizations of best practice. And of course, this has become easy now because of technology, right? You can go on the internet and find, I'll give an example shamelessly. When I'm always thinking about new ideas for Jobberman, I'll go to Naukri in India because I know it's an emerging market and they're the leading job platform there. I will go to Indeed in the US, I'll go to monster.com, I'll go to Read in the UK, not because Jobberman is the same as these, but because I will probably pick up some ideas. So that's one thing you can do. You can benchmark businesses in a similar industry to you. If you know your direct competitors, try and find out some information about them. If you know where you're trying to go and I'm trying to build, X, look at X and say, what did they do? What was their journey like? And if I was to compare where I am today, what are the differences and what can I learn? That's the first thing. So, and benchmarking takes different things. One, you can look at expert judgment. For example, our previous speaker, is clearly an expert in the funding and financing space. Call him up or call up a similar resource, right? So expert opinion always help you in terms of benchmarking. You can do an alternative analysis, which basically helps you say, if I don't invest in this particular resource, what are my alternatives? Will your alternatives help you reach your goals still? Maybe yes, maybe no. Will your alternatives be cheaper? Will your alternatives be easier to implement? Are they more friendly for your current environment? Do that alternative analysis, and then it will help you realize really what are my options in terms of this resource, and where the universe in which I can create a solution. You can also look at published data. A lot of people spend time analyzing industries, analyzing geographies, analyzing products, even to that granular level, and maybe you can find some insights from what's already available that can help you figure out the resources you need. Some softwares help, especially if you're doing, let's say, just initiating a big project. Something like Microsoft Project can help actually figure out the resources you need. And then that will definitely supplement the analysis you did initially to say, is the gap. So if you have already, let's just recap stage 1 and 2. Stage 1, you do your internal analysis, which is like a bottom-up analysis to say what you need. Stage 2 is a benchmarking. Look out there and say, what is best practice? And how do I upskill, or how do I reboot my resources to meet best practice? Or maybe best practice is not applicable to your situation. You need to tweak it a bit, but then it's fine. Still, you know what the goal should be. And then basically after that, once you understand, because if you do step 1 and step 2 well, at the end you should have a very, very clear understanding of what your gaps are, and the question becomes, what do you need to do in order to fulfill them? And I'll give you a very good example from the financing part. If your resource, if the resource gap you have is a financing gap, then you need to know, and I'm sure the previous speaker touched on this a lot, so I won't deep dive into it, but you need to understand that people do not invest if you don't have processes. People won't invest if you don't have structure. People will not invest if you do not have well-kept books for the past audited books for the last 3 years. Those are things you need to fix. So then you'll understand, if I want to get financing 18 months from now, let me start working on these 4 areas. Same as human resource. If you want to get good quality talent coming to organization to fill certain roles, you need to figure out what's my company culture? What's my employee value proposition? What exactly am I offering this good talent that I need to come into the organization and help me that will win them over, right? You're not the only company hiring, believe it or not, especially if you're looking for great talent. And you need to have a very, very clear value proposition for the human resources that you bring on board and ways to engage them. How am I going to track their performance? How do I make sure this investment, this salary I'm paying actually pays off? How am I going to track my return on investment here? And for this resource I'm bringing in, what support do I have ready to provide? You need to have these things in place before you bring in good talent, because good talent leaves bad environments. That's just a fact. And that's on that part. The third one is physical, right? Then physical almost boils down to, of course, there'll be trade-offs in terms of cost. But you think through, if it's office space, for example, what's the minimum amount I need? How does it fit within my budget? How can I bring this down? Do I need to look at other areas? If it's computers, whatever it is, right? There's some analysis to go into. Can I afford this? Does it meet my challenge? And if so, how long will it take for us to implement it? Physical stuff takes a while because there might be supply chain involved. There might be, physical, there may be, if you think about the renting situation, for example, negotiating with landlords, renovations, etc. As long as you know what you decide to do, you can then start planning out on that piece as well. The last, which for me is the most important, around the emotional resources. It's you as an entrepreneur, you as a business owner, you need to understand your strengths and your weaknesses. You need to understand the things that that reduce your productivity, and then have a close circle of confidence. It could be a combination of mentors and sponsors and friends, or even just people in your industry. A lot of people I speak to a lot at Jobberman are our competitors, but we maintain a relationship because we all understand the hustle we're going through and the pain we're going through. And as long as you can just listen to how they're approaching certain solutions, it could help your business as well. So you need to create this circle of emotional support for yourself. It's a very important resource, such that when you burn out, your staff or your business is not what's taking the brunt of it, but rather you can look outside of yourself and outside of your business environment to bring even more resources to the table. And if you do that across all those four measures, so you see that kind of helps you understand the resources you need. It helps you map out how you're going to get them and what you need to do to prepare. And the second part now that follows out of this is, once you've got these resources, how do you manage them, right? And this one for me boils down mostly to planning. At the beginning of the year or the beginning of your financial period you're assessing, it could be a quarter. You need to have a very, very clear picture in terms of what kind of goals you want to achieve by the end of this time. You need to know what resources are going to be deployed and make sure they are available. So if you've done the analysis to understand your gaps, if you've done the benchmarking, if you've done what it takes, the groundwork it takes to be ready for these resources, and you've onboarded them, the next thing is to plan and make sure they're put to good use and not squandered. If you don't plan, again, if you're ad hoc, you'll be surprised. You could have a marketing budget for a year that you've hustled for, disappears on one campaign with no impact, simply because of this lack of planning. You could end up with one staff that is working 18 hours a day and another is working 6 hours a day, simply because of lack of planning, right? So that's super important from a perspective of implementation and making sure that your resources are not squandered without you knowing. And of course, a lot of companies, this is performance management. And performance management is not just for people, right? There needs to be KPIs for everything, even financing. You want to know the loan that I got or the investment that I got, how far did it take in my business? How am I tracking the return on every single investment across the different resources? Yeah. I'll stop there and take any questions. As I said, I'll make it quite brief, simply because we are out of time. But if you've got any questions, I'm happy to take them.
That was a very good one. I got everybody have been asking the same similar question. Interestingly, can they get the recording after this event? And the answer is yes. But there is a question I got from Kelechi Bob, who said, how can an idea go to market with the person having the idea not having financial capabilities and having fear of the idea being mirrored or stolen by the other person with financial capacity? Did you get that question first?
Yeah, I got that question. It's a very interesting question. And I want to give the answer in 3 phases, right? The first one is the most important answer. This is the first one, and it's the most important one. Entrepreneurship, innovation, leadership in business, those things are for the brave. It's a risky venture, New ideas come about, but not all the time. Think about how many car companies exist in the world. Imagine if because the first car came from Ford. Imagine if the next person had said, no, Ford is already doing this and they've got so much money, I'm not going to enter the market. We could still be in a situation where we've got only one car company today. But for every single business, you can find your niche. You can find the particular thing you're excellent at and carve out something special for yourself. So don't be so worried about somebody with a bigger idea and more money will come and do it. No. tweak your, the best business is one that is solving a need that's so specific that it creates automatically a specific part in the market that whose problem you'll solve. So when you think about it that way, your ideas will always have a different variation, but what makes yours special, what makes yours tailor-made to your target audience? That's the first thing, right? The second thing is the finances part. So this is where resource planning is important. For most businesses, and I can tell you for most businesses, it's possible to start with so much less money than you actually think. If you think through what does it take for me to create my minimum viable product and do that analysis from a resource perspective, most likely for the average product or average new idea, you'll find that resources, human capital resources you need are yourself and maybe one or two other people who are quite junior, so not high on that. From a financial perspective, you'll find that it's something that for the minimum viable product that you can do with your savings, or at least ask your friends and family, not to scale, minimum viable product. Remember, that's what we're focusing on right now. And the same for everything else. Once you have your minimum viable product, then you first pause and find it a client. If you can find someone to buy that minimum viable product, then you're in business, because it means that even if somebody else comes up with more money than you, like, don't panic on money. If you can sell this one thing to one person, guess what? Chances are you can sell it to 2 people, to 3 people, to 5 people, to 10 people, to 11 people. If it's a good product, the first person you get feedback, you improve it a bit. The 10th person feedback, you improve it a bit. Before you know it, you've got 20 customers based off that MVP, and you've been improving it. That's how businesses grow. You get to a point eventually on your 100th customer and realize, oh my goodness, this is how much we've grown. My minimum viable product looked like, a 2010 Toyota Corolla. My product now, my 200th client, looks like a 2020 Mercedes-Benz. And it's because of these small iterations that have been happening, right? It does not happen overnight. And then at that point, where your minimum viable product has evolved and you've got a wider client base, you can now start looking for big funding. And there's a reason why we hear about all these US entrepreneurs who got started in garages. It's because they were thinking about their minimum viable product. They were not spending on resources beyond what it took for that first sale. So focus on that. Focus less on the fact that people have more money. There'll always be people with more money. What you need to build is grit, to know you have to keep trying again. You have to keep improving. You have to focus on making a product people need. So find people that need it and try and sell it to them. And then keep growing, keep iterating. There'll always be an underdog against big money. But if you look at Steve Jobs, who started in a garage, compared to a Mark Zuckerberg who was able to drop out of Harvard, they both created giants. One had financial juggernaut already, the other did not. But guess what? Between Facebook and Apple iPhone, they're both giants today. So don't think about yourself as an underdog. Think about the value you're creating and how you can iterate on that value until the whole world sees it.
Fantastic, Madam Hilda. There was something I took from one of the last statements you made. Keeping on. Yes. Yeah. Keeping on, regardless of the obstacle. As long as you're passionate about what you're doing as a starting entrepreneur, you would keep pushing. So keeping on regardless. Madam Hilda, our Niger wife, if you allow me, thank you very much for being part of this session. And anyway, I will share some of the accolades you've been getting. I've been seeing so many powerful presentation, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. So obviously they all enjoyed your delivery.
I'm glad it was helpful.
For those questions about the videos, you will get the videos. Trust me, we're recording these sessions, and after this event, you will get the videos and even editorial articles on their presentation. So please don't worry about the video aspect. You will get them. Madam, thank you very, very much. I hope you will stick around. If any other question comes your way, we'll push it your way. Thank you very much,
cool.
Madam. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.